have a very quick presentation. We'll try to spend just a couple of minutes to give a little bit of a background, right, to the webinar, right, and to the discussions that are going to then ensue in just a few minutes. Let me share quickly the screen so that we have present. Great. So I think, Amy, just to follow up on a few of the points that you have already mentioned, a couple of the trends that we observe in the industry, definitely it's a move towards more digital aspects of shopping, with consumers spending 4 to 5 hours on their mobile devices every day, right? And actually, with the COVID situations that we observe across the region, I think the shift towards digital, which we have observed in the past, has been further accelerated. And so definitely a great shift towards a digital adoption, which is then leading to the second point, and that is kind of the blurring lines between online and offline, right? So again, due to the COVID situation that we observe, it becomes increasingly difficult in certain areas and locations to even have access to the offline stores and to the malls, right, with the lockdowns still being in place in countries like Malaysia. So a lot of the consumers that are getting more and more used to digital shopping are actually searching for products online, right? And for ZALORA specifically, we saw double-digit growth in terms of active visits and customers across different markets, with Singapore definitely being in the lead, but countries like Philippines, Indonesia, very close behind, right? And the last point then would be, not only the blurring lines between online and offline, but the increasing access of customers to assortment and products from around the region, right? And global, I would say, assortment. So what is becoming very important is being able to capture that cross-border customer, right? Because that availability, that option is in the market, and the customers are increasingly looking for it. Right, which then leads me to some of the complexities that we observe in the region. So as hopefully the listeners would know, although Southeast Asia is often looked as perhaps a homogeneous market, actually it has a lot of local differences, right? Each of the markets is very localized in terms of content, in terms of kind of the consumer I would say profile, right? And as part of that, it is important that we are aware of these differences. We are aware of the complexities in terms of supply chain and operations, and are able to, I would say, effectively tackle these through various solutions and services, I think, that are available in the market. So with that in mind, as you pointed out, Amy, we have designed in ZALORA what we call a one-stop solution. And I think although at the very beginning, this was mainly looking at warehousing and fulfillment, I think at this point, what we are able to offer is really an end-to-end kind of enablement of our brand partners' journey in e-commerce, right, and in the online space. So we would be focusing on topics like, of course, warehousing and logistics, but more and more expanding towards payments and payment localization, production, so meaning photo shoots and content creation, even topics like marketing, pricing, and promotional kind of activities across various platforms. Right. So the important point here is that we want to serve as a partner to our brands, to the fashion industry, to connect the industry with the consumers and customers across all channels, right? Being it ZALORA, but even beyond, right? So our solution is actually, I would say, omni-channel service that we are currently providing. And this is all supported through, I would say, a single platform strategy, right? Kind of an ecosystem where our brands can manage their full customer experience from a single location. That's what we are building. That's what we are striving to create. What this then results in is we're trying to reduce the risk for our partners so that they can tap into and attract the customers very quickly without having to think too much about the assortment risk, but actually even to be able to better manage their assortment through the width and the offering, right? Because we are now able to offer those products across multiple channels. So with that in mind, we're trying to reduce the complexity, reduce the effort for our partners so that they can really focus on what matters most. And that is, the customer relationship, building the brand awareness, driving the engagement with the customers, right? And ultimately, with this, we are able to offer a consistent experience across multiple, platforms. So with that said, just a quick introduction to the partners that we have today. On one hand, we have PUMA, with whom we have been partnering over the last couple of months, I would say, in terms of rolling out, several activities, several solutions across the markets, specifically, launching some of the marketplaces in Indonesia, right? And currently, we are also looking into expanding to Philippines, right? And basically, we're connecting in this omni-channel setup. On the other hand, we have CrescoData, our second panelist. And with Cresco, we are partnering to provide these solutions, right? So Cresco is our tech partner that is allowing us to integrate very quickly across various platforms, being it the marketplaces or our brand partners like PUMA. So great to have both of these panelists on board. And without further ado, Amy, I probably pass it back to you, and let's jump into the discussions.
Thank you, Mate, for shedding some light on quite a revolutionary service. I like how you spin it from like a 1SS to a one-stop solution. Indeed, there's never been a more critical time for businesses to not only be digitally engaged, but also consider new ways to meet such growing demands. Still, some questions remain. How can brands adapt strategies to create a seamless consumer experience in Southeast Asia? What are the trends? And how have we responded to these new fulfillment challenges? Now, to answer all your questions today, please join me in welcoming Mark Hawkins, Director of Operations at PUMA Group, Lisa Reta, Head of Customer Success and Growth at CrescoData, and Vykintas Mineikis, Regional Operations Director at ZALORA Group. Thank you all for joining us here today. And a quick note to our viewers at home, we will be opening up the floor to everyone at the end of this segment. So please do send us your questions through our Zoom chat box. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Vic. Now, let's address the big elephant in the room here. What are some of the trends you've all observed in the shifting landscape of e-commerce and new customer expectations, especially with regards to fulfillment? These days, it's not enough to provide free shipping, but next day delivery is expected too, for example.
Yeah, so if I take that first, so basically what we're seeing on the fulfillment side is that generally a lot more customers are expecting a gratified experience. And what do I mean by that is that you want a lot more options, right? In that sense. So one of the options would be like the next day delivery, but the other options that we're launching are like same day delivery or time slot. But not only on that side, not only on delivery side, but we also are talking like gift wrapping service. Or recently we've seen a big trend in Indonesia where the customer, as an example, wants to decide what third-party provider they want their parcel to be delivered to. So I think the most important part is just to keep open to listening to your customer in that sense.
I think if I can add to that from what we've noticed is that it's also, all of those options are extremely important, but it's also very different from one market to next. So you can't look at Southeast Asia as a whole and say what applies to one region is also valid for another region. So Singapore might not have the same value for next day delivery as Malaysia does, for instance. They may want that. So you can't pick one trend and say this is the trend that the market's going to, and that we apply this across the entire region. You have to have those options available and let the customer choose what experience they're looking for. On the other side, we've also seen that not just from the logistics side of things, the front end, the consumer experience and how they purchase, there are so many more options available now, and you need to be able to not just set your shingle in one spot and say, well, I've got my own web shop. There's all the different marketplaces. There's all the social commerce, all the different ways that they grow and they wane in popularity. So from a brand, we need to be available in all of those areas and be flexible to be able to jump around and all of that. So from a back end, that leads to the fact that we need to be able to cater to all of those different front ends and the ways that we're selling. So you have to be extremely flexible from a logistics point of view to be able to take those orders in and manage those. So you need the systems to also be able to handle all those different ways that you get those orders and how you then translate those orders to good customer experience so the customer comes back and continues to purchase from you.
Lisa, do you want to weigh in on that as well?
Yeah, I think for us, the biggest trend has been accelerated plans, digital plans from our customers. So everyone wanting to go on to more and more marketplaces or channels. And then I think the biggest challenge from there has been able to deliver, like Vic said, on those plans and making sure it's a great customer experience at the end of the day.
Great. Now, what has been the biggest shifts in all of your consumer bases as a result of COVID-19? Maybe we can start with you again.
Yeah, sure. So I think what we are seeing on our side with COVID, right, is on the sales side is that we see different categories moving differently. So we see basically sports moving much faster. We see wellness, beauty increasing in sales in that case. So these would be like the key takeaways from our side.
Over to you, Mark.
Certainly, I concur with that. We would see athleisure in general has grown significantly while people are working from home or not getting out, or they're in lockdown or in exercise mode, all of those things. So for us, that's been a big bonus for us that athleisure come to the forefront. So, and of course, just in general, with the different shifting, the ways that different markets have been handling COVID, it changes the way that they can remain a consumer or be a consumer. So the bricks and mortar is either not an appealing way to go and shop or not available. So people are still looking for different ways of shopping and shifting to e-commerce for that. But again, multiple ways of reaching that market as well.
Lisa, your thoughts?
I think for us, it's been, I guess, traditional bricks and mortar retailers that are looking to expand online to reach a customer base that's no longer, I guess, reachable given the current climate.
Great, thanks. Now, Lisa, with CrescoData's platform in mind, what are the biggest challenges you've discovered facing SMEs currently, and how would you advise businesses to approach them?
Yeah, so there's probably three things or three major challenges that we see. One is, being able to list their products or catalogs across multiple marketplaces very quickly. So I think that's number one challenge. The second challenge is being able to deliver on those. So orders, I think every brand has experienced a, huge volume increase in orders. So that's being able to fulfill those and dispatch within the given timeframes. And I think the third challenge is, with an omni-channel approach, being able to deliver a consistent customer experience. There's a strong correlation between, I guess, customer satisfaction and loyalty when there's a frictionless experience.
Yeah, and seeing as how CrescoData serves as a middleware to front-end websites and back-end fulfillment centers, how does CrescoData allow brands to choose the right partner, especially for them to grow?
Yeah, so Cresco is, a platform and partner agnostic. So we let our partners choose who they want to work with. But I guess, choosing the right partner, making sure they have a track record, ensuring that they can deliver and provide a great customer experience at the end of the day.
Great, thanks. Perhaps this makes one of the key strengths of ZALORA in this equation, in a sense that, not only is it a retailer, but also a fulfillment center. Vic, how has ZALORA empowered businesses, especially SMEs, to reach their full potential?
Yeah, so with COVID, basically, right? I mean, there's a huge trend going digital, and that's becoming even more important. And how we're helping SMEs there is that basically we're helping them to go smoothly online, right? And we have built our fulfillment solution, right? And what Mate was mentioning in the presentation earlier about the cross-border. So, partnering with us, we help SMEs to go cross-border, reach out to, all the different geographical locations that are out there. And, this is one aspect of it. The other aspect is that we take off the headache and we manage end to end, right? So like, as an SME, then you don't need to think about, payment options. You don't need to think about customer service, and at the same time, we help manage the optimization and the data and the storefront. And that has been very, very crucial in the last 1 year and a half.
Great, thanks. Actually, speaking of reaching their full potentials, Vic, OneSS has also enabled various businesses to tackle hard to penetrate markets. Now, what does it say about the diverse abilities of OneSS? I know Mate just kind of briefly touched upon it, but I'll give it to you to fully expand on it.
Yeah, so all the solutions that we have built in ZALORA, basically, and everything what we're able to offer to the customers today, we're able to offer to our OneSS partners fully. And, we're working with I think over 50, 60 different logistics partners alone. Just imagine that. That's, on the data side, that's 50, 60 different connections just to deliver the different parcels. And, we're optimizing that all the time. Similarly, as we talked earlier, we have next day delivery options, same day delivery options, right? We're talking about return options in that case, right? And then we're able to list that stock as well to other platforms, and similarly as well to fulfill the SME platform as well, right? So it is like, the way how I would think about it is taking off all the difficult part of operations that comes with our regions, and taking off the headache, and then helping SME then to focus on what they do best. Right, designing assortment, preparing assortment, and so on.
Great, thanks. Actually, the word diversity is actually quite a good one in this case, and especially for Mark, seeing as how PUMA has diversified its e-commerce network, which actually now includes Bukalapak, Blibli, and Tokopedia in Indonesia. In this regard, how has PUMA penetrated the Southeast Asian market, and where do you see its growth, and how can businesses take advantage of it?
Well, it's a very complex question, because there is no one answer or one way that you can penetrate any one market, and it will always change over time. So the way that we tackle Singapore and Malaysia, for instance, is different from the way that we will tackle Indonesia, which is also different. We'll do Philippines and Thailand and the rest of those markets. So we have to absolutely change with whatever the regulations are, whatever the market's like, any of the restrictions that we have, and also as we are growing in size, we have certain strategies in which we do that. So one of the ways that we do that is to partner with ZALORA and to use their expertise, particularly in markets where we don't have that expertise, that experience, or that market penetration. So we really have to be incredibly flexible in the way we do that. So we're partnering with ZALORA in Philippines, where we are growing that market or starting out in that market and using their expertise to help us to achieve our goals. In Indonesia, it's even more complex, where the regulations and the legal side of things makes it very difficult for an international company to trade directly. So we will take up more services from ZALORA and other partners in those markets where we can have less of a direct interaction, and we need to use third-party services more. So every market's different, and we need to be completely adaptable to all the differences in the Southeast Asian market.
Great, thanks. Throughout my research, something very interesting came to my attention, Mark. Sales in PUMA's third quarter were reported to be the best ever in history, despite the pandemic. Do you think this recovery is largely due to PUMA scaling up in e-commerce and digital engagements?
I wouldn't say largely. I would say definitely a very large factor. A lot of the reasons why PUMA is doing so well is it's been a long journey that our whole team at PUMA has been, I wouldn't call it rebranding or rebuilding, but really optimizing PUMA as a brand and establishing ourselves as a premium brand of products that are fantastic, and the marketing's fantastic. Everything has been growing to this point, and we've had excellent years leading up to this. But specifically, when you talk about last year and how it was really one of the best in history, it was a decision that came all the way from the top that we were not going to go on the back foot, retreat into our shells, cancel orders and cancel activities and retreat back from it. So unlike a lot of the players in our market who held back, went into, into their shells, protected themselves a little bit, PUMA actually doubled down on everything. So all of our programs involving e-commerce and logistics, all those things were all continued or accelerated. E-commerce for us especially, we went on its way we accelerated all of our programs for e-commerce. At the same time, we didn't cancel orders. So we had all of our product offering. We had the fantastic product that was available for that time frame, for those seasons, was there and available and in stock, and something that then we could offer, which was new and exciting to a market that just maybe had a different channel on how they were going to reach it. So it was not bricks and mortar, it was e-commerce. We were there, we could supply it there, but we also had the product which was there at the right time. I mean, it's also helped, of course, that we were in an industry that did well in a COVID time, but that's definitely not the reason. It was that PUMA was absolutely ready for it and didn't back down.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think actually is the greatest challenge in pivoting PUMA's approaches, and what do you think brands should really take heed of in this sense?
It's a lot of different things, but I think what we have to be sure of is that you can't assume that because things are changing and difficult, that means you sit back and you don't change with it. You need to attack when things are when the market changes, when all of the factors change and everything like that. So from that, you just can't sit there and ride it out and then say, I'll see what the trends happen and then I'll react to it. You have to be on the front of that wave. So our team, the PUMA, from the top management all the way down, was very focused on shifting into e-commerce and being our outlet to the consumer. And we didn't wait to see how things were going to pan out with and how much COVID was going to affect. Nobody had that crystal ball. We absolutely jumped in straight in and assumed that do the right thing, have the right product, have the right offer, people will come to it. Just have to give them that outlet to do so. Great,
thanks. Now, Mark and Vic, how do you both see the future of omnichannel given the current climate that we're all in, especially with the retail revolution, digital revolution especially? Will cash become obsolete? And what does your data say about your ever-evolving customer?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Vic.
Yeah, sure. I think what we are seeing, at least in different markets, is very different, right? On the cash front, in the markets like Philippines, Indonesia, right? Like Philippines especially, the cash is still going to be very important. And I think for different customers, it matters differently, especially we have a COD as a payment method, and everywhere we see that's a very important consideration. We see a higher adoption of COD in new customers who are trying out still the e-commerce. So I think in to transition more customers to e-commerce, which the percentage of e-commerce penetration is still much lower. What we see in other markets is still going to be very, very important. Yeah,
I think our research says that the payment options and how people interact is largely tied to their maturity in the e-commerce space. So you've got the likes of Singapore, where e-commerce is not new; it's already well established, and so there are multiple payment methods, and things like COD or cash itself is largely non-existent. There are multiple e-wallets, there are multiple payment methods. Everything is very well. It's very digital and it's very trusted. And so as the region becomes more mature in the e-commerce operations, you will start to see the shift, and that will continue to go that way. COD for us is a new one. It's one that we're having to tackle now, and it's not one that we're used to, but we also recognize it as a requirement in certain markets, especially Indonesia and Philippines. But we also see that in the medium term, we're going to see other methods like e-wallets and things like that to start to replace COD itself, or maybe start to diminish COD and move away into something like an e-wallet where the consumer doesn't have a credit card facility or some other payments facility. And there are other markets that are similarly placed who are maybe a little bit more further along in their e-commerce journey, and we're seeing e-wallet replacing cash. Cash COD is starting to disappear as markets mature.
Yeah, especially now with with COVID, and everyone's just a little bit, with the e-wallets and everything. Well, just physical wallets. I'm just a bit, Yeah. So now going to how customers are becoming a little bit more demanding. How can SMEs keep up with not only manufacturing but also logistical pressures? As you know, Vic, Southeast Asia is quite unlike any other region, with thousands of islands, as Mate had previously mentioned. And rural villages to consider as well. How do you address this?
Yeah, I think as an SME, right, it's a very challenging thing to do, and to deliver to all the different islands and deliver on time. And what we were saying, the customer expectations are rising, right? In having having a faster delivery. How are we tackling it is that we're partnering with a lot of different logistics partners, and each one of them has their strengths, right, and weaknesses in that sense. So some of the partners are really good in a certain area, and using data, then we basically allocate the volume to the different logistics partners, right? I think for a SME, partnering with 50, 60 different logistics partners, that's a bit challenging, and that's why for an SME, choosing the right partner to work with, as an example in the One Assess, right, where we are basically able to offer all the different couriers, I think is one of the ways to think about it.
Great, thanks, Vic. Now, on the flip side of that, the environment is on top of everyone's agenda. How can fulfillment centers walk the fine line between scalability and sustainability? Perhaps everyone can weigh on this as well.
Well, it is a tough one because it is it's one that there are only limited channels on which you can affect it. Obviously, packaging is the first one. Making sure that your packaging is fully sustainable, and ideally you design your packaging in a way that it's also reusable. So if you're delivering in a nice bag that's made from fully recycled materials, and make sure that it's also the return bag that they use, so you're not creating additional packaging. Potentially the packaging could also be used for other things for people. So but other ways, from the logistics side of things, it's a really tough one. But for PUMA, it's part of our overall one of our key metrics, our key platforms. We are aiming for 90% sustainability in all of our cotton and all of our plastics and everything like that. So it is one of our key drivers. So from the very top, we have guidelines that must be followed, and they get stricter and more stringent every year. And we're always looking for different ways to reach those sustainability targets. But for that, we need also our logistics partners to come up with some ideas for us as well on how we can improve the process of the last mile delivery. There's all different ways that it's going to be employed over the coming years.
Great. What about you, Vic?
Yeah, so if I chip in, I think logistics, what Mark was saying, that's a very challenging area. I think that's an area that's still developing, and I think where we'll see a lot more movement there. I mean, we have been seeing some exploration into electric vehicles, right? But it's all very much an early stage, and in some of the countries, there's no regulatory environment, regulatory, set up even to basically work with that. On the if I was to add on the fulfillment center, I think if you are centralizing your operation actually more in one place, and any type of sustainability metrics that you have, actually what we see is easier to manage because it's centralized, right? It's easier to control. And as an example, if you were to think about electricity and renewable energy, it's easier to do it just in one centralized hub rather than, if you're very separated and exist in a lot of different countries. So, and one of the ways that ZALORA is doing it is that one of our main fulfillment centers in Malaysia, from which we can actually fulfill to all the different markets in that sense.
Great, thanks, Vic. So these days, marketplaces and online retailers have actually evolved to become a source of entertainment, if not education. In fact, ZALORA already has its own podcast channel. I'm the host, by the way, alongside a string of content platforms from Z Live to eZines, and also something like its own blog, like one in covers in the Philippines. Now, where does this all fit into the whole omnichannel multiverse, and what's everyone's thoughts on this? Vic, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, so it's the way how I see it from my point of view is an evolution, right? The way how basically people shop is not the same, and it's not an e-commerce alone, right? It's just a catalog. Usually of different products, but you want to engage with the customer. You want to have their consideration, right? You want to have their time, and that's basically how the different media channels play into that. And I think the whole omni-channel thing is a whole integration piece, right? It's not all the different separate pieces, but you need to think about the customer journey, right? And how they go from consideration to going to the offline store, which is not happening in some of the markets right today. But from the time the customer considers to the time the customer buys, actually, it doesn't necessarily mean the customer bought online. They might have actually decided to buy it when they were where they were in an offline shopping mall, or they would started to consider it there. So a little bit blended in that case, but all important for the customer engagement.
Great, thanks, Vic. Lisa, do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, I think with Omnichannel, it's provided another opportunity for online retailers or marketplaces to engage with end consumers. And I guess one way to do this, similar to what Vic said, is the shoppertainment. So it's an extension of what you would normally see within a retail store online, and just another way to build, strong connections, repeat visits, and purchases with the end consumer.
Great, thanks, Lisa. Now, speaking of when it comes to cloud-based technologies and all things tech, one of the greatest fears is perhaps data security. Lisa, how will this shape omnichannel as a whole, especially within the Southeast Asia region?
Yeah, I guess the protection of customer information should always be paramount. And with Omnichannel, there's, a natural exposure to more opportunities for breaches. So making sure you have, strong, efficient systems in place to meet, not only regulatory guidelines, but sort of the way you would want to operate as a brand. And I think also with Omnichannel and what everyone else has touched on, working with partners, I think you need to be able to partner with people who and companies that share your values around sort of data security, protection, processes, and standards. Yeah.
Great. Well, in this case, how can brands harness data intelligence to scale their businesses, or even to ask the right questions, Lisa?
Yeah, I think asking the right questions is being able to how do you scale So talking to providers about data automation, having one source of truth and being able to map that and synchronize the data through to different channels in real time without, any additional effort from a retailer's perspective. And I guess also by, watching and reducing cost, staying ahead of the competition by using a partner where, you don't need to maintain any of the channel integrations yourself. That is done for you.
Great. Now, my final question to all of you. What is the one takeaway around fulfillment and omnichannel experiences that you'd like to share with our audience? Vik, we can start with you.
Yeah, so I think the most interesting point for me was what Mark was saying earlier when he was talking about the, PUMA strategy and what they were doing. Where what is important is not to fall asleep and continue evolving and challenging what it is. Don't wait until it's too late, right? But basically already evolve now and look at your digital strategy in that case and what you're doing about it.
Great. On to Mark.
I would say the one major takeaway is you have to be extremely flexible and really adaptable on a moment's notice. You have to be very, very quick to be able to adapt. So it adds to what Vik was just saying, but basically it's not just a matter of each region, it's also all the different channels within each of those regions and how they might change. So that goes all the way from your supply chain to the systems that you use. You can't just say, I'm going to do this one way and put up this one site and use this one piece of technology, and that's going to be my solution for everywhere. It won't work that way. You need to have to be able to adapt to any number of different technologies that you can shift to on a moment's notice. Same thing as that too, is that if you're partnering with multiple different partners to achieve either the technology or the 3PL or the logistics, any of those things, you need to be able to swap those in and out too. If one part of that chain is not performing well, because your customer doesn't care what your excuses are, doesn't really care where it broke down. If it breaks down in any one place, you need to be able to swap that out, come in and fix that problem very quickly. And if you're doing everything with just one old piece of technology or one player that does everything, then in some cases you are limited in that. So you have to keep those options open.
Yeah, and finally, Lisa.
I think it boils down to the customer experience, and I guess using tech partners or logistics partners that provide a frictionless experience for the end consumer, and that allows, frees up the time for the brands to sort of look at engaging in innovative ways.
Great, thank you. I'm actually starting to get a lot of questions, so I'm just gonna shoot one of them right off. This one comes in from Amar Chandani. We are in the FMCG health and beauty space with ZALORA Philippines, specifically food supplements. Can Cresco fulfill food supplements / vitamins in different SEA marketplaces? And are there regulatory hurdles that sellers like us need to overcome? Lisa?
I think this is probably a question more for Vik or Mate, but CrescoDat is just the data automation platform. Yeah, just to clear that up.
Yeah. So I think on food supplements and vitamins, actually, is quite a regulated industry generally in different markets, and there are different regulations that needs to be complied with. So it needs to be looked actually market by market specific in that case, because there's specific certifications that are needed. That's as much as I can answer at this point in time, but would need to be looked into separately.
That's all good. Hopefully it answers your question, Amar. Now on to Sandy. As a ZALORA seller in Malaysia, Singapore, Taiwan, and Hong Kong, how do we join a ZALORA fulfillment solution? Vik?
Yeah. So how do you join? You reach out to our acquisition team, right, in that sense, and then they actually would be able to set up a call and discuss with you the solution, how that works, and what could be the next steps from there.
Great, thanks, Vik. Okay, our next question, and I think this applies to everyone here. It comes from Diane Sirigar. How do you plan your omnichannel /omnichannel strategy? Mark, perhaps we can start with you, and we'll just make a.
Sure. I mean, PUMA's been omnichannel for a very long time, so it's a very very big, long planning solution, but basically we are omnichannel in that we control everything from not just our omnichannel for how we reach the market, but also from our source of goods. So we design all of our own clothing, footwear, accessories. We have long relationships with the factories and all of our planning cycle and all our development cycle there. So it's a little bit, it doesn't necessarily apply to an SME who will have to have different trading partners for purchasing and all of that. So we have very long standing relationships with all of our suppliers, all of the different service suppliers, all of the different transport, everything like that. And that goes from beginning to end. So it's probably not relevant for smaller companies, but yes, certainly we have all of that. That's just the end, how we reach the end consumer that we need to be able to shift very quickly.
Great. Vic, do you have anything to add to that?
So I mean, we more like support all the brands with their omni-channel strategy in that case through our 1SS solution. I think how do you plan it? I mean, that would I can't really share too much in that case on that question. Yeah, that's
okay. Now on to our next one from Prabal Deshwal. Will e-commerce ever be able to break the touch and feel of the product, say maybe digital trial rooms? I guess Mark and Vic, this is something you both like to weigh in.
Will it break it? I mean, it's always going to be digital, so there's always going to be some hurdles. There's the physical side of things will always be there. People want to touch and feel, but I mean, technology is coming a long way. So we do 3D modeling in a lot of our key styles now, and you can have virtual rooms where you can actually try on some of the products and things like that. We're looking at all sorts of technologies for those sorts of things. And of course, even when we go back to some of your earlier questions about how ZALORA can provide as an entertainment, they've got all of the different ways that we can present the product. So there are ways that product can be more than just an image on a screen. We can digitally have that digital assistant. We can have someone who will be talking about the product, showing the product, and actually visually seeing the product. So while we're not completely closing that gap, it certainly is. It is getting better and better, going from a static image into something that is a lot more visual, a lot more informative. And of course, for those of us who have a full omnichannel, which means a bricks and mortar as well, we tie those together so that the journey doesn't have to be only in one channel or another. It might start digitally, and it might end up with a touch where someone really wants to see something. They can go to one of our bricks and mortar and have a look. Or it could be the reverse. They start to learn the brand from the bricks and mortar, but prefer to purchase their products from online. There's lots of different ways to do it.
Yeah, Vic, how does ZALORA do it?
Yeah, so I think what Mark was saying is we see an evolution of augmented reality, right? That's something that's coming on board. That's something we don't fully have yet on ZALORA, but something we're experimenting with, and is definitely something that gets closer to the touch and feel. I think we'll never break that gap, but you can only basically get closer. And I mean, one of the other alternatives that I have seen is how do you make really very seamless experience on delivery and returns at the same point. So you bring the store to the customer, which is, you deliver to the customer to the door, and you give some time to try out the goods and make a decision at that point in time whether you want to keep or return. So that would be like, an ultimate hassle-free touch and feel experience on the spot. However, it's not immediate now.
Great, thanks. We've got one from Rico Abiera. Did ZALORA and PUMA have any contingencies for something like COVID-19 before the pandemic hit? If yes, would they have considered this effective, or is it very different from what they're doing now? And if no, how long did it take for ZALORA or PUMA team to adjust to run everything smoothly? It's a bit of a long question, Rico, but it's a good one.
No, it's a good question. I don't think I don't think anyone would really say that anyone had a contingency plan for COVID, and that doesn't apply to just our sector, but governments and countries and all of those things. It's a brand new experience, a once in a lifetime experience for all of us. So, do we have plans? No, maybe not for COVID, maybe not to the effect of COVID. So it meant that we had to be very, very nimble, and of course that worked out really well because partnering with ZALORA was that they were also similar, extremely nimble, open to ideas. we work together to find ways to get over any hurdles that might be there and to move very, very quickly. So no, we didn't have a plan for all of this, but we did adapt very, very quickly. Would we plan for something like this in the future? Again, I suppose everyone will plan in a different way for it to be able to adapt to a similar scenario. And we're still all adapting because there's not really an end in all regions yet anyway. So we're seeing lockdowns start up again in some regions and in Southeast Asia. And so we're adapting all the time for those things. And we have contingency plans for that sort of effect of COVID.
Yeah, if I add from ZALORA's side, I mean, so we do plan for emergency response, but the pandemic was something that, did take us by surprise. That's not something that you always keep on top of your mind when you think about the emergency response. And what Mark was saying, it was about actually a lot of learning and a lot of agile and very fast response in trying to set up new procedures. Like the most important ones was health and safety in our fulfillment centers. And then the other disruption that has happened, especially on the cross-border, is that we have seen a reduction in flights. So the cross-border fulfillment actually got a lot more challenging. There's a lot less flights in that sense, and we had to be very much in touch with our logistics partners and be ready to shift and change the routes at any moment possible. It has been very challenging, especially in the beginning, but I think the same as us, the same as PUMA, and the same as logistics partners, I think we have learned from that, and we have learned how to deal with that in a much better way as well.
Yeah, thanks, Vik. Lisa, would you like to add in anything, especially from a data perspective? I think that might be quite interesting as well.
I think as everyone touched on, we didn't, probably no one had a contingency plan for COVID, but for us, we were customer led. So obviously with everyone's accelerated plans, just making sure that we were available to help sort of scale and expand their marketplace ambitions.
Great, thanks. Yeah, seriously, no one saw this coming. Safe to say. All right, now moving on to the next question. And I think this is more for ZALORA. We are one of the sellers on ZALORA. This is from Christine Tong. How can we start expanding our sales to other regions in Southeast Asia?
Yeah, so we do have a setup, so-called international drop shipping as well from Hong Kong, and we're able to fulfill to the different countries. I think the question is also asking who to reach out. So that's our commercial team. In that case, would be Mate as well, who was presenting here earlier.
Great. Now, okay, our last question, and I think that's the only time we've got left. What are the current omnichannel functions made available to sellers on ZALORA from Crystal Ling?
So we pride ourselves to offer end-to-end solution. Meaning we offer the B2C digital fulfillment. We offer fulfillment of other platforms. We offer fulfillment of, let's say, the brand.com. Similarly, we're able to do distribution of the goods, and end-to-end, meaning we handle, from the time we take over the stock, basically everything from that point onwards, ZALORA is able to handle. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Vik. I think that's pretty much it. We have run out of time, unfortunately, but to those who have sent your questions in, I hope our panelists have answered all of them, if not maybe, a few of them. But I'm afraid we have to say our goodbyes now. But nonetheless, I hope this session has cleared a new path, and especially now as we navigate our way out of the woods, and most importantly, presented an idea of how things may well be in the fourth industrial revolution. Once again, I want to thank you all, Lisa, Mark, and Vik, for joining us online today, and also to Mate, who presented earlier. And until then, this is your host, Amy Yasmin, wishing you to stay healthy, stay safe, and see you next time. Goodbye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.